Good afternoon. You hear me okay, Lonnie? Yes, sir. All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Griffin-Spalding County FY22 budget hearing, public hearing number 2. At this time, we are going to offer the superintendent's recommended budget presentation, and we hopefully will have anyone that has interest to show up. If not, we'll go into a recess until our workshop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'm going to ask that the school system's Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Byron Jones, come on up and present to you all tentative budget for FY 2022.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members. I'm getting used to being first on the agenda, so I kind of like that a little bit. I'll try to be brief on this one because I know you've got more important business coming in at 4 o'clock. So this will be a quicker presentation on my part. Obviously, if you've got any questions, we're interested in that. Not many changes from the prior presentation, so the second slide, just again, my goal is to be communicating effectively to you today, to hopefully we're presenting a budget to you that you can approve. Again, on our strategy map, ensuring fiscal responsibility and accountability was the purpose of this presentation so that you can feel good about what we're recommending. Lonnie, I'm on the budget priority slide. Just a tweak to this, we did go in and add the promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion under district initiatives number 5 to recognize, the superintendent to recognize this is a focus for all of our decision making moving forward. Very important to our district, so we did make a change there on that slide. From our total appropriation of all funds, again, this slide has not changed. Just to remind you again, the general fund and special revenue amounts are somewhat estimated on the special revenue side until we get those approved budgets in the fall. We'll be coming back to you, federal programs will be coming back to you as a regular exercise to get that approved. As far as the FTE counts, you all have heard us kind of talk to you over and over about this. This is a focus for the superintendent moving forward, recruitment efforts. I think you got a presentation on some of that coming tonight on how we can invite our families back to our district and welcome them with open arms. We hope they will come back, plus more. But you can see as the data right now, to remind you, we're down about 400 in terms of our FTE count, which will affect our funding moving forward. From proposed expenditures, proposed inclusions, again, longevity step $800,000 to $1 million in terms of salary scale escalation if somebody's eligible for a step. Health insurance is not increasing for next year. TRS is going up by less than 1%, but it's approximately $150,000. The major recommendation as far as expenditures for next year would be approximately $2 million for our teachers to remain whole at all of our campuses to ensure our ability to plan if the students do come back. If for some reason we're down, they'll have smaller class sizes, or they'll have the flexibility to fill gaps in the ways that the campus sees necessary to help the students on those campuses. So that's about $2 million, even though we are dropping an FTE that the board has approved us to move forward on leaving whole. Next 3 slides, again, from last Monday's presentation, I don't believe they've changed. Obviously, if there's any questions we have on these, we took some last time. I'll open to any questions again, but these are the items that we proposed to include in our good, better, best version. This is the best version. The ones that have CARES on them, again, we're seeking clarity of if those do qualify. If we have to absorb those, if they're still funded, and we have to absorb them in the general fund, then that's just more money we will move to CARES in the way we're offsetting some of the expenditures. So it's still something that can be approved. I am on, let's see, the general fund page, slide 11. Just to remind you, we are trying to balance to $94 million. I made a comment last meeting that our revenues were being a little bit more aggressive in how we're predicting those for you. And I made the comment about the TAB tax coming in higher, so that's why I feel better about that. The deposit I got yesterday was $387,000 just for the TABT tax. So when I talk to you all, I think it's June 1st on these meetings that I'll be going over this. I'll point that out to you, but that's extremely high. So that's another reason I think it could go down, but I mean, I do feel like it'll sustain. And then our bullet point at the bottom, we're using CARES 2 money to balance any deficit that we have. So just to remind you, regardless of what's approved in this budget or the final in June, when we get to this point next year, we will have to take this full year to see how FTEs, do they come back? Do the students come back? Do we need to look at some expenditure trimming for future years? Is this sustainable or not? We do know that that's something that we're going to have to look at. So just understand that this is more of a make-whole year in a lot of areas for FY22. So special revenue, this didn't change from last time. Basically, this is our grants with a full 14.6 of CARES money included. That's why it's so high of $27 million. The next slide is trimmed down from 3 slides to 1. I think your package, you can see it good on the slide, on the screen it's harder, but that's your teacher, that's the certified salary scale. Just to remind you, Griffin-Spalding goes 2 steps higher than the state for their local supplement. So instead of stopping at 21 years, Griffin-Spalding goes to 23. This is a cut down version for you to look at. In summary, we're going to continue to monitor our items through June 15th before we give you a final budget approval or recommendation. Plan of action just is ongoing as we review, recommend any changes through the superintendent. Timetable on the last slide, you see where we're at tonight. We've crossed off the last meeting. Go ahead and flip that, Lonnie, to the next slide. We're on the 18th now. At 4, we'll ask you to approve the tentative budget, and we'll send it to the newspaper tomorrow. They'll publish it Friday, and then we'll come back June 15th and ask you for a final adoption. So that is, I hope, brief. Mr. Holmes, I hope that was brief enough for you. So we'll be glad to take any questions, Superintendent, at this time. And we do have people in the audience if there's anybody that has a question that is more of an expert on their subject area than I am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I just have a question about CARES. CARES 1, I forget how much that was worth, CARES 1.
$3.5 million approximately, 3.7, somewhere in that range.
And then CARES 2, 14.6. I guess I just want a little bit of education of not necessarily what that money is for. I feel like I have an understanding of that, but is there a certain timetable that has to be spent?
Encumbered through, it's either 22 or 23. We have to encumber those funds by that date, which doesn't mean we don't have to spend them out. We have to have a plan of action. And there's a plan of action called it's a use of funds form for there's like 12 categories that we have to check the box on. Mm-hmm. Continuation of services is what we're talking about by moving salaries to other pots, bringing them back. Hopefully there's other FTEs in there to offset that, but if not, we have to bring it back and make decisions at that point. So CARES 1, 2, and 3 are a little bit different in some of their items, but all of them have a continuation of service catch-all item, for lack of a better way. CARES 3, which is 30-something million. I know you didn't ask about that one, but that one is the
33, as I recall, right? About 33 million?
Yes, ma'am. I think 20% of that, 8 million, is learning loss specific, which we have to do that in that area. And I think that can encompass a lot of things. I mean, we've been having discussions. We had an in-depth discussion on CARES 2 the other day, and I kind of talked with the cabinet about how we really need to use 2 to do some propping up, for lack of a better way to say it, for 2 years. And I don't know that we could make it 2 years, but that's going to be the plan. CARES 3 will also have it may have to have some prop up as well. I mean, your tax base could go down. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. You know, you'll have to look at that, millage rate, all that stuff will come into play in discussions. But all of them have a exceed date, and then you have a 1-year carryover in addition to that.
Okay.
So let's just say 22, 23, 24 with a 1-year carryover on each one of them.
So basically, I think I hear you say you're talking about maybe 3 school years, 3 academic years?
Yeah.
Basically, maybe?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's good. Thank you so much.
All right.
Give them maybe about 2 or 3 minutes to make sure everybody's good before you.
Well, I just want to make the comment that, you know, as a board member, I know that I've been a staunch advocate for providing equity education, and the budget appears to have all of the considered factors and variances during the budget planning to provide a balanced and equitable budget. In the past 3 years, I know I can speak for myself and maybe Ms. McDonald that this is the most hands-on that we have had with the budget as board members. Even for Mr. Doss, I think is agreeing to it as well. So I just want to say to the superintendent and to the staff, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to not necessarily influence, but provide input to the budget and to get a better understanding how funds are being used in our district. I also want to give a shout out to a national organization called School Board Partners. Last year, I went through the Certificate in Educational Finance through Georgetown University and was awarded a Certificate in Education Finance. So throughout this process, it has afforded me the opportunity to be able to see how the budget is processed and how it is analyzed through the general fund, special revenue fund, school nutrition fund, debt services, and capital projects. And so I just want to say thank you for your expertise, Mr. Jones, in providing this leadership and helping us with this. So
Sure.
that's all my comments, Mr. Chair.
All right. Anyone else? Any comments?
I would agree with everything Mr. Brown just said publicly. I just want to say, you go.
Well,
Turn up.
we talked about being open and transparent, and, you know, I told you all on the retreat, some of this is the only way I know how to do it. It's just some documents maybe you've not been shared with before, not a criticism, but they're out there. You don't have to have a password in the portal to get them, so why not be open about it? So that's what you'll continue to get.
Thank you.
My only comment is, I think we're in a very unique situation, and I was not real interested in creating more at the central office level. But I was able to see how the few positions that are being offered are tied to student achievement and to teacher retention. And so as long as we're able to do that, I realize that we have to get those FTE counts back up, or 2 years from now, we're going to be revisiting this in a stronger level. So with all of that said, I'm good with moving forward.
Well, I don't see any visitors, invitation for a visitor to address the board. So if everyone is in agreement, Ms. Cook did let us know she would not be here for this part, but she should be here for the work session in full. So if there's nothing else that you want to present, consider ourselves in recess until we get closer to that hour, that 4 o'clock hour. So at this time, we'll go into recess.